Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most shocking and almost unbelievable developments in Russia's war against Ukraine. Reports have emerged showing Russian troops riding actual horses into battle. Yes, horses, in a war dominated by drones, electronic warfare, and satellite-guided artillery. What we're witnessing is a chilling sign of just how desperate Vladimir Putin's military situation has become. This isn't just about outdated tactics. It's a vivid symbol of how far Russia has fallen from its image as a modern military superpower. It's easy to forget that only a few years ago Russia was boasting about being one of the most advanced armies in the world. They claim to have hypersonic missiles, unstoppable tanks, and elite fighting units. But today the images and footage coming out of Ukraine tell a completely different story, one where Russian soldiers are being forced to ride horses because their armored vehicles and fuel supplies have been decimated. This isn't the Red Army of the Soviet era. This is a broken force struggling to adapt to a modern battlefield it clearly doesn't understand. Ukrainian drone operators have been sharing footage showing groups of Russian troops riding horses across muddy fields and forested areas, clearly trying to avoid drone detection. But the irony is that these horses make them even more visible to thermal imaging and reconnaissance drones. The result? They're being spotted, tracked, and destroyed before they even reach their objectives. Modern warfare has no mercy for outdated methods, and this bizarre turn of events shows how completely unprepared Russia is for the high-tech reality of today's conflict. You might ask, why would the Russian army resort to something so primitive? The answer lies in the total collapse of their logistics and supply systems. After years of sanctions, corruption, and battlefield losses, Russia is running out of vehicles, fuel, and spare parts. Convoys have been destroyed by precision artillery, and Ukraine's drone strikes have turned roads into death traps. To avoid detection and save fuel, some Russian units have begun using horses in remote areas, hoping they can sneak supplies or reinforcements through forests and swamps. But this desperate strategy is not only ineffective, it's tragic. Soldiers are being sent into modern drone hell with 19th century transportation. The image of Russian troops on horseback is a metaphor for Putin's entire war. He's trying to fight a 21st century battle with 20th century thinking. Ukraine, on the other hand, is adapting rapidly. Using cheap drones, artificial intelligence, and Western technology, they've created one of the most efficient surveillance and strike networks in the world. Russian movements are constantly monitored. Horses can't hide from drones. They can't outrun missiles. They can't protect soldiers from fragmentation or shrapnel. What we're seeing isn't bravery. It's the collapse of military strategy. Even Russian military bloggers, usually loyal to the Kremlin, are ridiculing these tactics. They've called it a humiliation, saying it's proof that the Russian army has lost its modern capabilities. Soldiers are reportedly complaining about the lack of vehicles and the absurdity of riding animals into drone-infested zones. Imagine being told you're part of the world's second most powerful military and then being handed reins instead of a steering wheel. The psychological effect must be devastating. Meanwhile, Ukraine is using this to its full advantage. Videos showing horse-mounted Russian troops have gone viral, becoming symbols of Russia's regression. Ukraine's message to the world is clear. This is the army that once threatened NATO. It's powerful propaganda, and it's true. The more the world sees of this, the harder it becomes for Putin to maintain his illusion of control or strength. This also shows the broader impact of Western sanctions. For years, Russian factories have relied on imported parts for everything from trucks to helicopters. With those supplies cut off, production lines have slowed or stopped completely. Military analysts say Russia has been cannibalizing old vehicles, stripping them for spare parts, and even digging up tanks from storage. When you reach the point of using horses in a modern war, it's not innovation. It's desperation. In fact, reports from the front suggest that some Russian officers are trying to justify the move by claiming that horses can go where vehicles can't, especially in muddy terrain or dense forests. While that may sound reasonable, the truth is those areas are exactly where Ukraine's drones excel. Forested zones are now filled with thermal and motion detecting sensors. Even the heat signatures of horses are easy to spot from the air. Russia's soldiers have nowhere to hide. What's even more disturbing is how Putin continues to pretend that everything is going according to plan. The state media calls these tactics creative mobility solutions, trying to spin disaster into innovation. But no amount of propaganda can hide the reality on the ground. Russia's military logistics have collapsed under pressure, and morale is sinking fast. Soldiers are questioning why they're being sent to die in a war that's clearly unwinnable, on horseback no less. When we look at this situation in context, it fits perfectly into a pattern we've been watching unfold for months. Russia is losing ground in multiple sectors. Ammunition shortages are crippling their artillery advantage. Ukraine's drones are dominating the skies, hunting tanks and striking supply lines deep behind enemy lines. With vehicles destroyed and supply routes exposed, horses are becoming a last resort. It's medieval warfare in a digital age, and it's a sign that Putin's military is collapsing under its own weight. This is not just a battlefield issue, it's political too. The Kremlin is desperate to maintain the illusion of progress, even as Russian families bury their sons, and the economy continues to strain under sanctions. Putin's propaganda machine can show fancy parades in Moscow, but on the front lines, reality tells another story. Soldiers are under-equipped, commanders are confused, and strategies are outdated. The decision to use horses is more than just strange. It's symbolic of the entire system falling apart. It also shows the widening technological gap between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine has turned itself into a testing ground for modern warfare, integrating drone fleets, AI-based reconnaissance, and electronic warfare systems supplied or supported by NATO countries. Every Russian move is watched from above, analyzed in real time, and countered almost instantly. Against that kind of precision, sending troops on horses is practically suicide. It's proof that Russia is not adapting, it's regressing. And yet, Putin keeps doubling down. He continues to send wave after wave of conscripts and poorly trained soldiers into drone, saturated zones, hoping that sheer numbers will make a difference. But modern warfare doesn't reward numbers anymore. It rewards precision, speed, and information. Ukraine is fighting smarter, not harder. And that's why Russia keeps losing ground. Think about how this looks to the rest of the world. To Russia's allies like China and North Korea, it's a worrying sight. They see an ally claiming global power status but relying on horses because they can't sustain mechanized warfare. For NATO and the West, it's confirmation that sanctions and military aid to Ukraine are working. Russia's weaknesses are being exposed daily, not by fancy weapons but by their own logistical failures. This situation also exposes another layer of corruption inside the Russian military. Funds meant for modern vehicles and equipment have been siphoned off by officials for years. Soldiers on the ground are paying the price for that greed. They're fighting with rusted rifles, wearing mismatched uniforms, and now riding horses because their government stole the money meant for trucks and armored vehicles. It's a tragedy hidden behind propaganda. propaganda. Even if some Russian commanders think horses are practical, they're missing the bigger picture. Every time Ukraine captures footage of mounted Russian troops being taken out by drones, it fuels the narrative that Putin's war machine is falling apart. It demoralizes Russian soldiers and energizes Ukrainian defenders. The psychological warfare impact is enormous. This desperate move also tells us something about Putin's mindset. He's trying to project an image of strength while ignoring the cracks forming beneath him. Instead of acknowledging logistical collapse, he's pushing his army to improvise, no matter how absurd it looks. But history has shown that wars are lost when leaders stop facing reality. The horse strategy is Putin's denial made visible, and let's not forget the human cost behind this absurdity. These soldiers are real people, many young, untrained, and scared. They're being thrown into the front lines with no proper equipment, no protection from drones, and now no vehicles. Riding horses into drone fields isn't strategy, it's sacrifice. They're victims of a system that values political image over human life. For Ukraine, every sign of Russian desperation strengthens their resolve. They know they're fighting an enemy that's bleeding resources faster than it can replace them. The longer this war drags on, the more unsustainable it becomes for Russia. Putin may still have manpower, but modern wars are won with technology, not numbers. Ukraine's drone armies and Western support are dismantling Russia piece by piece. The image of horses on the battlefield will go down as one of the defining symbols of this war, not of courage or nostalgia, but of decline. It's a visual representation of a great power brought low by corruption, arrogance, and a refusal to evolve. While Putin tries to act unshaken, the world is watching the slow, painful unraveling of his military empire. What's coming next may be even worse for Russia. As winter approaches, logistical needs will grow. Vehicles will need maintenance, fuel will be scarce, and drone warfare will intensify. If Russia is already resorting to horses in October, what will they do in December? Every kilometer of ground will cost them more men, more equipment, and more credibility. In the end, this isn't just about one strange battlefield decision. It's about the collapse of an illusion. The myth of Russian invincibility is dead. The sight of soldiers on horseback under drone fire is the final proof. Putin's army isn't advancing, it's surviving, and even that is becoming harder by the day. So when you see those images of Russian troops riding horses into modern war zones, remember, it's not a tactic, it's a cry for help. It's the visual proof that Putin's so-called military machine is broken beyond repair. The empire that once terrified the world is now limping or trotting toward defeat. If you found this analysis insightful, make sure to like the video, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more updates on the war and its deeper implications. The situation is evolving fast, and the truth behind these desperate measures tells us more about Russia's collapse than any speech from Moscow ever could.